way, and I realized that it's not just about like HIV. It's about human rights. It's about racism. It's about like so much more. Incarceration. We've had laws in the United States for so many years that have stigmatized and demonized the population of people who use drugs. And the laws that I've followed, the laws that I've looked into, it seems like every one of them has some kind of racial, motivation around it. Back in San Francisco in 1870s, when opium smokers were smoking opium out in the San Francisco area, they implemented a law to make it illegal to smoke opium. And it was all around fear tactics. If you look at we look at the some of the news that was going on back then. If you get some old newspapers, it really was like Asian men lying with white women, and we were protecting our white women. That's what we're really doing, back then with some of these laws. And they played it like full tilt, but by doing that, they demonized a population of people. You go a little further ahead to 1914 and 1915 when they implemented the Harrison Tax Act. It was really targeted toward black men, and for the same reason. And the stories were horrendous. I read a lot of stories that were in the New York Times when they were going through the hearings for the Harrison Act. And the language that they used was brutal. It was talking about how they did a higher caliber gun because cocaine crazed Negroes were out of control. And this is stuff that's written in a freaking national newspaper. And there was story after story after story about this, and it was just painting a picture, people that are attacking us. It sounds really familiar of what I hear on today, with our current administration. These laws were meant to demonize, criminalize, and they worked. They worked for a long time. When I was in high school, they had one thing around drug use, and it was Reefer Madness. They used to show the movie Reefer Madness, and of course, we knew because when I was in school, there were 6 of us. We smoked weed and stuff like that. So we freaking knew there was nothing. We looked at each other, and I said, well, none of us has really raped anybody. None of us has murdered anybody. It wasn't like that. They were, people have lied about this stuff, and for years and years and years, we got the wrong information. We couldn't even study marijuana. I think it was from 1970 something, 1970, the early 70s. I know because I was in the last marijuana study in this country. It was a federal study, and we smoked, we smoked weed, and we did tests, and they were looking at our motivational skills. They were looking at our time estimation and all that good stuff. And for me it was a blast. For 30 days I was in there. I had a good time, and I didn't know back then. So that was say 1971, 72, and I can remember I was struggling with a heroin dependence. I had a habit that was really hurt me. I wanted to stop using drugs, and I called up places, like hospitals, and there weren't too many services back then. But at the same time, I'm doing other things. I'm applying for jobs in the Boston, Phoenix, and one of them was from marijuana studies, so I put that in there, and I called the detoxes. So when they called me, they said, "This is Mattapan Chronic Disease Hospital. we'd like you to come in. And I said, oh, this is great. This is the detox I'm going to, and I went down there, I did the interview, and halfway through the interview, I said, what is this? And, because I thought I was going to a detox, and I said, this is a chronic marijuana study. I said, oh, cool. I said, you know what I'll do? I'll just toughen up for a few days, and I'll just kick and stay here. I think it was 35 days I had to stay there, and I did. I was sick as a dog for a little while, and I put it off as the flu, and I became really friendly with the other subjects. There were 10 of us, subject number 1 to 10, and I think I was subject number 7. We had, we had to do all these little things to little tests, and one of them, the motivational thing was we had these little clickers, right? We had to click clickers to 10,000 clicks to earn our marijuana for the day. And, where I come from, my background, right, is get over, sneak, con, get by, and do anything you have to do, any means necessary to get whatever you want to get, right? So I had these little things that that people didn't, they weren't thinking about them. I turned that clicker and I was just playing around with it, and I hit the 9s, and I realized if I hit it really hard, it would go up hundreds if I had it on 9. And if I had under 2 9s, I'd whack it and it'd go up thousands. So I'd do my 10,000 points and my 10,000 clicks probably in about 45 minutes, and not even. I just whack it every once in a while. And then, of course, you share it with the other subjects in there, and, it was one thing after another. After that, it was all right, now what are we going to do around, we want to take this weed home with us, because it was back then when there were cigarettes, they looked like Chesterfields, they came in a little package, and, we wanted them, and as a souvenir. So what I came up with this plan of where, just break, when they bring, because what you had to do is you had to yell joint, 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 and some research assistant would come running down with a little pad of paper and your weed, and you'd smoke, but I'd break it first. And I'd smoke half the joint, because we had to turn in the roach. They measure the THC content after and stuff like that, and so that's how we stole a lot of weed. We all got to bring home 40 joints to 100 joints probably, and we probably really screwed up the study too. I know we screwed up the study, we were, again, you get 10 people in there and we're smoking weed all day, and they're feeding us, and nice big refrigerators and pudding, and the psychiatrist's wives used to make food and bring it into us, and man, it was really good, but by taking those joints, and by, we'd steal the packaging, because it was 10 1-gram marijuana, I think it was 10 1-gram marijuana cigarettes, these official little labels on them, and, I used to take those things and take the joints, back then we write letters, there was no email or anything like that, so I used to write letters to one of my friends and let them know what I was doing. I'm saying, this is where I am, this is what I'm doing, and the next night, they had a raid in there, and they searched everybody's room, and they found a lot of stuff. They found stuff like cash oil that people had taken in and snuck in, and they took it all away from us.
You want to take a look at this?
I found out that they had, one of the research assistants said, how they found out? They opened your letter. And so I was fucking, I said, I'm pissed. Who were they to open my letters? So I got together with 2 of the other subjects, and we pulled a strike. And we wouldn't cooperate. We would just smoke weed all day, and we wouldn't do any of the testing. We wouldn't do any of the things they wanted us to do. And that went on for 2 days, and then they had a meeting, and we went in, and we had a list of demands. One being that we wanted them to take us out for field trips, take us on rides and go to a park. Another one was pizza night, we wanted to have a pizza night. and we wanted them to take us out and take us out to a restaurant. I think we did it like 3 times, where they took us out to a restaurant. We were all like little guinea pigs, and we were government property. But they met all our demands, and we did what we had to do. And then they stopped having marijuana studies, and it wasn't because of us. It was just because of the way the law was back then. And they scheduled the marijuana as a Schedule I drug, putting it as there's no medical value in it. There's no it was like the same thing as heroin. It was like putting that same schedule as drug, and that's what we've been dealing with for years and years and years. It's shit. I mean, I've known people who've been arrested for 5 joints and they ended up doing like 5 years. And matter of fact, that guy was from Texas and he died in prison. I can remember these horror stories from back then, and like today we don't have that, and I'm grateful for it, and I hope you guys are grateful for it, because a lot of people gave up a lot to get to where we are today, some more than others, and I always look back on those folks that like paved the way for me, with the when I'll get back to the syringes. Like I was given clean syringes one day when I was in Boston Medical Center. Down in they have these tunnels under the Boston Medical Center where you used to be able to go to different parts of the hospital and they led over to the morgue. And I'd go down there and I'd use it as my own little shooting gallery. And I got caught by some employee from the hospital. And instead of like really treat me like a piece of crap, the person started talking to me. And started talking to me and educating me about using clean, sterile equipment anytime that I want to inject drugs, and how to protect myself from HIV and hepatitis C. I didn't know what the hell he was talking about, but I got it. I got it that, he cared. And not too many people back then cared, like for us. Not too many at all. But he cared, and that was like probably 1986, and by 1987 I was still using, but I was exchanging syringes in my network of friends up on the North Shore, and then I realized that there were other people. I started looking in the paper and I see like John Parker in Boston getting arrested for doing syringe exchange. My other friend there, the guy that's in his 80s, he was arrested back then. And I said, geez, there's other people doing this too? I said, that's pretty cool, because I didn't hear about this stuff. I didn't hear about harm reduction, HIV prevention, syringe exchange. What are you shitting me? Like, that was like, that was half the battle when you caught dope, was how do you get your injection equipment? Like how do you get a set of works? And so with the syringe exchange, I just did it in the network of people I was around, but already my wife had been infected with she was HIV positive, and again, this is the mid-80s, and she was HIV positive, and she was pretty sick. She lost a lot of weight. She was down to like around 80 pounds, and there was no medication at the time, and that little introduction from that gentleman, it paved the way for what I was going to do for the next 30 years of my life, the next 30-something years of my life, and that was to be an activist in rights of drug users, and I thought it was going to be like just until this is done and then I'll be done, but it's time has proved me wrong. I just turned 70 last year, this past winter, and I figured I'd be under the palm trees by now. And that's just not the way it is for my life, I've done this stuff for so long, and from doing work like that, then you start to focus not just on HIV. Then we started to focus on the overdose stuff. And we started to do overdose prevention groups back in the in the 90s, in the mid 90s, but we didn't have Narcan. And we always heard about it, but we never got our hands on it. I met a gentleman down in Miami, his name was Dan Big. I was at a conference, and it just so happened, I think it was 1997, that he's just started a program distributing naloxone to people who inject drugs. So I thought that was a great idea. I got some naloxone from him, and before you know it, we had a club going on. Like, I'd order from Chicago, they'd be sending crates of naloxone to my buddy's house, and we go out and distribute it to drug users and their friends. And we saw the results right away. You know, the first week we did it, the next week we came back, oh yeah, we saved 2 people from an overdose. And we kept on doing that distribution for 7 years with no support. I mean, we used our own money, and we did what we had to do to buy, the stuff that we, had to get, the syringes and the other equipment and the naloxone. This is how you do stuff, though, because, like, you know what, the public health commissions and Department of Public Health, they're not gonna go like do this stuff overnight. They're like, really, they don't have any balls. I mean, they don't. That's it. Like our legislators, that's what they suffer from. They don't have the courage to do things that have to be done, even though it might cost them some votes. And
Yeah.
so later on in life, I've gone through all my research. I've researched opioids, I've researched the laws, I've watched, I've witnessed a lot, and and a lot of it wasn't pretty, and a lot of it was really difficult, and it was hard, but I survived. I have so many friends that they didn't survive. They really, I could never count them all because there's so many, and that's what I work for today. I work for my friends that didn't have the opportunity to get to where I am today, even though they did nothing different than I did. I did everything that they did, except for some reason, I don't know, man. I didn't become HIV positive. And here's my wife, and she's HIV positive. She didn't do anything different than I. She didn't deserve that. She didn't deserve that. I was just fortunate that I didn't get hit. And that's when I really made that commitment back then when she was sick, and I said, I'm going to do this until it's all over, until it stops. We can stop this stuff. And I think about her a lot. She passed away in 1993, and it sucked. I had to tell 3 little teenagers that their mom was gone. That wasn't the plan of my life. It was a struggle. It was a struggle raising 3 kids, learning how to cook, learning how to do laundry, learning how to talk to my daughter about reproduction, reproductive, and kids and all of this stuff, and take her down and get her some birth control. That's what I had to do as a father, and it would have been nice if she had a mom to do it, but that's not how it worked out. And I don't have the only child whose mother passed away from HIV. There's thousands and thousands of these kids around. Back in those days, I was in my living room one night watching TV with all the kids that my friends' kids. And I looked around, there were 5 kids in the house, and every one of them had a parent who was HIV positive or had died from the virus, And that's one of the big reasons that I continue to do this stuff, because I see what the drugs have done, it's really not the drugs, it's the fucking policy around the drugs, it's the law around the drugs, it's what we do to people that use drugs, and that really rips families apart, and it just really kills them, and so I looked at all of those kids and I said, wow, we have a lot of work to do. And that was back then, and I looked today and I said, you know what? I said, we have a lot of work to do. I'm a different guy. I don't run up the stairs anymore and exchange syringes. I don't, I don't sling Narcan at the corners. my work is more like behind the scenes now, and it's really going in and trying to nudge my way, sit at the table, and that's stuff we have to do that it's not always the easiest thing, you know? Like, I could do the street stuff all day long, but like, to get sitting at a table with cops and legislators and health care providers and stuff like that, that's foreign to me. But like, you know, I think about it, who's better to do it than, you know, than a 70-year-old geeky white grandfather of 7. You know, that's what I am. You know, like, I'm one of the guys that I used to like say, oh, no way, I don't want any part of that life. Like, I never thought I was gonna live past 30. And once you hit 30, you know, back in the 60s and stuff, you know, your life was over. That's what I thought, you know. But we have to really take a hold of this stuff. We have to support people that are doing the frontline work. Like this union, these unions that have sprung up over the last 10 years, the drug user unions, you know, like, shit, there was a law back in 1970, I think, like down in New York, the Rockefeller law, where if you were a drug user and you were talking to another drug user, that was an illegal act. And they come in and arrest you for like just being with other people who use drugs, you know, and that's stuff we had a battle for, you know, mandatory sentencing, you know, like the answer is always more jail time. Like for the crack epidemic, it was more jail time, mandatory sentences, 20 years for this, 20 years for that, and the laws were disproportionate around like rock cocaine and powder cocaine. If you used powder cocaine, you didn't get as much time as if you were dealing in crack cocaine, you know, and of course that emptied out a lot of the black neighborhoods, emptied them out and filled up prisons. And that's how this society, our society, because this is our society, we have to make the adjustments to it though. And one of the adjustments being like is by, you know, being active in your community, being active and like pushing the, you know, the letter, just pushing the envelope just a little bit more every day, you know. And that's what we do in harm reduction. And we do public health work. We implement public health work usually about 7 to 10 years before, like some health department, like the Massachusetts Department of Public Health, before they take a stand on either one side or the other and push it forward, you know. And that's what happened in the naloxone. You know, I got caught, again, practicing medicine without a license. And I had to meet with board of directors of programs where I was doing work in, and they wanted to know if this was illegal. And I don't lie, so I just said, of course it's illegal. I said, you know, like really, this is, but it needs to be done. This is like, you know, a really, it's like syringe exchange. It's like the gold standard for overdose prevention, naloxone. Syringe exchange, the gold standard for like, you know, keeping people from catching, you know, contracting HIV and AIDS and hepatitis C and all that stuff. So we work really, and like what you're doing in here, like it's gonna take time for people to catch up with you. You know, it's about being, you know, about being patient. I don't know about being patient. I don't know. Just persevering, I think, you know. We need to persevere through all of this shit. We're gonna get like things thrown at us. We're gonna get things, you know, like people that like want to see us done away with. I can't tell you like how many times I've been targeted by law enforcement, and you know, like I was worried. I was worried about them setting me up in a drug bust. I've been worried about them, like, you know, somehow all of a sudden like shooting me for some, you know, because like gun went off or something. But I survived that. Like now, again, I'm just that old geeky white grandfather that I'm able to like navigate my way through these places where I never ever dreamed of being. You know, last year I did a congressional briefing with Congress down in D.C. Yesterday I had coffee with our governor. Like, you know what? I was a dope fiend down in Shirley Avenue Revere. That's what I did for like 27 friggin' years. And And to be able to have this opportunity, to be here today, to be like, on where my voice is heard, because often it wasn't heard. And most of our voices, we have a voice, they're just not heard by these people that they're not open enough to listen. And those are the places we have to push ourselves into. And I've been doing pretty good at that. Like I meet with a lot of legislators on a regular basis. I just sat on the Governor's Commission on harm reduction to discuss supervised consumption facilities in Massachusetts. And this stuff's going to happen. I know it's going to happen. I think the consumption rooms will come before I pass on. But like there's something right after that. There's something right after those consumption sites, that I have my eyes on, and a lot of us do. We think about regulating our drug supply, and how much death and how much disease and how much, jail time is going to be taken off the board if people come to a place where drugs are regulated. You can purchase your drugs, you can get whatever, however they do it, like insurance, whatever. But it's going to make for a healthier community, and that's my sell, around the consumption and dealing with people who use drugs. We have all the science is behind us, but that doesn't make a difference anymore. Like if you listen to what's going on in especially this current administration, where I think they've gone back to the 50s as far as like some of the stuff they do to address substance use. And this is stuff we've got to change. Can you give me a time check, like when you?
Yeah, we're getting ready to switch over.
All right.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So it's that perseverance and that get out there and be a pain in the ass, and like I said, I'm 70. I'm just finding my voice. I mean, really, I'm just finding my voice. That I know a lot more than friggin' governors, and I know a lot more than this one and that one, but I like to team up with folks, from all backgrounds. I want to be on committees. I don't want to be on, this is the choir committee. We're all going to, we all sing the same song. We're all going to carry the same message. We all want the same things. No, I like to go into rooms where there's somebody that the ones that talk about junkies and bums and people, things like that. And I like to sit at those tables. I know it takes a long time, but I can outlast them. I know I can outlast them. I've sat at tables for 2 years, several times, just trying to get one initiative that I wanted to do out there in the streets, or get something through legislation. Get something through, the House, and that's stuff that I can do today. But what? My heart stays on the street. My heart stays with people that are out there using. These are the folks that really make the difference. They're the ones that make the change, and and it's really important to their voices are really seldomly heard. And sometimes they need somebody like one of us to go up and talk for them, and that's what I've been doing, advocating for folks for the last 30 years. And that's not really my background. That's not really where I come from. From what I was trained to do as a boy. Go get a job, go white picket fence, and but that's not my thing. I go and I argue with legislators and police chiefs until all of a sudden we start to listen to each other. Because the biggest thing here is listening, being able to listen, and being able to listen to a bunch of bullshit, because that's what people are throwing at you every single day. Sitting in a room with a chief of police where he starts out the conversation when we're forming these committees, talking about how junkies don't care about each other, how they don't care. And then in 2 years later, he's talking about people from the drug using community. That's a culture change, and that can happen. And that only happens when there's differences in the room and you come to some consensus and you come to compromise. But that's where I'm at. We still need you know, like the soldiers. We still need the people like standing on the State House steps, going in and having to sit down in front of the governor's office. You know, that's where the rubber hits the road, you know, and I really believe in the next few years, we're gonna be at a place here where there's gonna be a lot of change. There's gonna be tons of change. And one place is gonna be in drug policy, drug laws, and we're gonna see a lot of change. And we have to be prepared for that, and we have to lead the way. You know, it's not up for the police to lead the way. We need to lead the way. You know, so, you know, just get out there and you know, stay out there, do what you gotta do, but, you know, it's all worth it. It's all worth it, man. You know, we're here for a reason. Sometimes it's not our selfish reasons, you know, like to just take care of us. It's about taking care of our brothers and sisters.